Hey everybody, this week's episode is on communication. Have you ever, in a blended family, have you ever needed to share something about your non-biological, your stepchild? Have you ever needed to share something about your stepson or daughter to your new spouse about their child? Well, if you are in the situation where you're a blended family and remarried and you have kids, you know that particular situation can get dicey really fast.
It's like the emoji.
Yeah,
you know?
right. The like emoji. Because let's be honest, if someone's critiquing, your child, which we don't like to use that language in blended families, but your biological child, if they're being critiqued, there's just a natural God-given inclination to defend your child. So this week's episode, we're going to talk through how to walk through that, how to share, how to be in good communication, have an open platform for those kind of conversations that will make it a lot healthier, because a lot of couples really struggle with this. It's like, your kid's getting an F in school and he punched someone in the nose and stole the cookies, and like, well, your kid didn't clean his room, and this is like, blended families are prone for this, and a lot. And some of it is born out of natural emotion.
Yes.
Of like, it does, we acknowledge in our books, like you have to work towards loving your non-biological child the same as your biological child. But if you're committed to, you can do it. But it does take wisdom, and it takes this kind of information that we're going to pass along today.
Well, I was just going to say, I think even in particular, moms, women, I think get more emotional and more can get claws out when you are bringing something to their attention about their kid, their biological child. So you see it. I mean, we have seen it in several couples that we've spoken to. The mom just really is on another level.
Right. Johnny can do no wrong.
Yes. And I think because we are emotional beings, God created us to be more emotional than men. So anyway.
Yeah, it is a thing. So learning to communicate. We call this episode Comms Check. And so a comms check is really like, a lot of our imagery that we talk around is around an ark, an ocean-going vessel, if you will. Yeah. And in the Navy, they, in military situation, they do, or even in civilian situations, you do a comms check in a boat or in a situation or even in a military exercise to make sure that the lines of communication are open and working, and everybody's on the same team, and the communication is flowing the way it needs to before you go into the battlefield.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and you hear us talk a lot about communication because it's so key. Comms check is so important.
Yes.
In a marriage, but even more so in a blended family, because there's so many things that change, or you're dealing with your exes and what happened on the off week, and there's just so much.
The information flow is high.
Yes.
And it's, to your point, you have an outside dynamic of potentially the other home, other ex-in-laws, or schedule changes that you're not maybe always privy to.
Yes.
And so there needs to be a lot of information exchange in a blended family by the nature of its dynamics. Otherwise, you are prone for confusion. Maybe some not anger, but frustration. Around not communicating. And so is why this chapter's in our books. Like a comms check, keeping those lines of communication open is super critical. So let's circle back to, I think, what is probably the communication that really can be the most has the most potential for problems, and that is, how do you communicate with your spouse about their biological child, your stepchild? Yeah. And if you are seeing behaviors in their child that they're not seeing, which is common, they can have blind spots. We all think Johnny can do no wrong, right? My son's perfect and my daughter never sins, and so we all have blind spots about our kids. But so how do you address your spouse about their biological child in a way, because we're parenting these kids, we want them to grow up and be godly individuals.
Emphasize we
as a team want them to grow up and flourish and know the Lord and and be good, citizens of this world, and be well-behaved kids. So we have a job to do. And so if you are seeing it, it does need to be addressed. How do you do it in a way that the defense mechanisms don't come out for the biological parent?
Yes. Well, I think first is creating that time of one-on-one where you can sit down and have these conversations as a couple, away from the kids. Just have some designated time where you guys are,
and it's a known context. And you're going into this time.
It's not this
hey, babe,
unknown.
This is our air our grievances time. Like you go in knowing that.
Yes, it's clear, and there isn't nobody's caught off guard. Like, that you're coming in to check in and have these conversations on how are we doing? How is it going in our family? So just setting that foundation of, we will have one-on-one check-ins on a monthly basis, or however you want to set that up. We really encourage that. But then I think it's really important sometimes to just start out by praying and asking the Lord to give you, if you're someone like me, that I could be a hothead. I mean, early on in our marriage, it was just, I feel the Lord gave you patience beyond patience with me.
Fiery Latina.
Ooh, man, I look back and I'm like, oh man. But the Lord, I mean, he will supply, he will give you what you need, and he'll tell you that. But ask the Lord to give you guidance and to give you wisdom and to give you clarity. If you are the one if you're bringing up some of these things that you're seeing in your non-biological child, ask the Lord to just give you the words to just speak that, so that it would be clear, concise, that it would be helpful, and that your spouse would receive that in love.
Yep.
So that, the end goal of that conversation is that there would be a stronger marriage, a stronger family, and that there would be continual flourishing in your family.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
I think that is number one, and I could probably speak on that. Keep going, because I think it's so important to invite the Spirit into that conversation.
Amen. I mean,
don't speak off of emotion.
Yeah,
Leave that at the door, because it will not go well.
Yeah. If you're still coming off, feeling a little spicy from getting kicked in the shins by your stepson, then don't have the conversation.
Exactly.
Come in with check your emotions at the door, check your ego at the door, bring humility in with you. And I love that. Pray together, not separately, pray together, that these meetings, because the entire goal of all of this, all blended family, all parenting, all of life, is to be closer to Christ.
Yes.
It's to be a family that lives for Jesus, embodies and incarnates Christ, and is a walking miracle of redemption, a blended family.
Yeah.
And so the entire goal is to make your family better and walk more closely with the Lord. So my goodness, pray.
Yes.
Use your words, invite the Spirit into that conversation so that things go well.
Right.
And not to go to the negative, but it is really shocking how many couples just don't communicate. They just don't share.
Yeah.
And in so doing, I'm probably going too far backwards here, but it creates chaos, creates a little, can create irritability. But so what we're saying sounds maybe bottom shelf, but it's no, actually do this. Actually set time aside.
Yeah.
Men, lead your families in this. Take 1 hour a month, or every 2 weeks, depending on where you're at as a family and how much chaos. Evaluate what you need for communication.
Yeah.
Specifically on this topic, men, lead by setting aside an hour with your wife when the kids are, either down or at friend's house or whatever, to specifically check in on this topic, to specifically check in and be like, hey, what are we seeing in our kids?
Right.
What's Johnny doing? Is he flourishing? Is he struggling? How about Sarah? How about, How are they interacting? What kind of behaviors are we seeing? Are we seeing progress? Are we seeing growth? Here's where we were last month. Maybe you're journaling, or like writing things down and taking notes. What are the struggles? What are we facing as a mom and dad?
Right.
And address those together, because it's not about your child or my child. Those words get left at the altar. When we get married, it's not your child or my child, it's our children.
Right.
And so you need to face these parenting challenges together. It's not about critiquing the other parent, the other spouse's child. It's about talking about your children collectively and how you can parent them better together.
Yeah. And again, you just said it's well, shoot, you just said a couple of things and now it totally left my mind. But I guess what I'm saying is it's so important to also bring humility into the conversation, because one can get defensive really quick and make it becomes personal. And it's not that.
Right.
It's not that at all. And so
they're your children together.
Yes.
Strap that onto your mind.
Right.
It's not personal.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I'm saying this for the second time, but just remember that the end goal of you guys having one-on-ones is to better your family. And also what happens in these one-on-ones is this right here, you're building unity together because you're checking in. And oh my gosh, how many times did you and I have like one-on-ones where they were just so fruitful. They were so many good things. And, sometimes they were hard conversations, but it was still good. Right. And so we also have been on the other side of like, we tried to have conversations where emotions were just high. 99.9% of the time it was from me, but it didn't go well. And it was like, you know what? Like, I think we just need to stop this conversation right now. This is not going to end well. And then, you end up in a fight or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I love what you just said. This is an exercise in unity. So like on a macro level, the meta point here also is, yes, it's about talking about one or the other's biological children. Yeah. But at a meta level, it's practicing unity. You're practicing being in one couple to help parent these children.
Right.
And that will flow into your marriage and flow into your home. Yep. Versus what happens is people isolate and they try to deal with their child on their own, separately, separate conversations between mom and Johnny. Yeah. And now what do you have going on there? You are creating invisible family lines that says, I need to parent my children separately.
Right.
Instead of coming together and saying, we're parenting these kids together. So if you want to inadvertently inject disunity in your home, do that. Right. Parent separately. Take Johnny off to the side and invisibly let him know that it's you and him. Right. And your new dad isn't included. It's like that will infuse disunity and separation into your family in all of these nonverbal ways that the kids pick up on. They're like, we're not really a family. I can tell by the way my parents parent me. Right. There's separation. It's like, no, don't do that. Come together, have these check-ins, parent together, bring unity in, and it all is rooted in communication. Right. Communicate.
Well, what I was just going to say is there's nothing worse as the other parent when, the non-biological child says, oh, I was talking with my mom and she said, or he said that this was okay or not okay, or there's just whatever the conversation was. And then the other parent's like, hold up, like, wait a minute.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
And then, so then in that moment, you're hopefully keeping your emotions in check from not letting frustration show. But, then you're just kind of like, well, shoot, that's a bummer. So I think be careful of that and be mindful of that because that just like you were saying, that just creates division and it creates these invisible lines that just start to, and Satan likes to use those things.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then all of a sudden you're like, what is going on with our family? Yeah. It's just like there's this ethos of separation.
Right.
And distinctness between these invisible lines between your family. And it's just like, but sometimes those are the seeds you've sown.
Right.
Because you're not acting like a family.
And it brings in chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So if, that's the context for, being able to share with your spouse about their biological child, set a specific context, knowing that's what you're going into the conversation for. Set aside that specific time, enter into it with humility, keep your pride low.
Yeah.
There are other types of comms check that are just as important inside the family for running well. We'll hit these quickly, but they're really between... Another comms check between you and your spouse on the marriage itself.
Yes.
How am I doing in my role? How am I doing serving you? We'll hit these. And then there's a comms check at a family level. How's our family doing? These are like, family conversations. And then comms check. The fourth comms check would be make sure you're having one-on-one time with the kids. So so we're going to hit those next three. Let's just, go through the marriage comms check really quick. Like, what did we do? And I think it was pretty effective.
Yeah. So just like some of the things that we did already mention, but we were very clear and very on the same page about checking in one-on-one. And I think for the first 2-3 years of our marriage, it was on.
Yeah, about the marriage.
About the marriage. Yeah. Yes. It was... I don't know. I think it was like monthly, or it could have even been sooner than that.
Depending
maybe
on
our
if we
first
feel like
year.
we needed it.
And so we just marked it in our calendar, and we just knew that it was usually like on an off week where we didn't have our kids. So we had undivided attention, and it was just right here checking in. And we just gave each other the platform to say, hey, how am I doing? And, I think sometimes I would write things down because I didn't want to forget them. And not that I was keeping a list, but there were just...
Yeah, you want to make sure you bring the right things to the meeting.
Yeah, because what would be worse would just to be like, oh, yeah, no, there's nothing. Right. And you're like, really? There's nothing? There's nothing I could be working on? Or, So I think that was something that right out of the gate, we just were like, okay, how and when and how frequent are we going to have check-ins, one-on-ones?
Well, marriage check-ins are a really, really powerful tool because what it does is it creates a known outlet for issues that you want to talk about in your marriage.
Right.
And so for many spouses, they think, I'm never going to get a chance to talk about this stuff because either, I'm afraid it's going to offend my husband or, gosh, my wife gets cranky when I bring this stuff up. But the powerful thing about scheduled marital check-ins, how am I doing check-ins, is that you can reserve having to let every little thing out all the time or never getting anything out. Because you're like, hey, I know on Tuesday, I'm going to get a chance to talk to my spouse about this in a known, low emotion, humble, controlled environment where we're going to share with each other. I'll save it until then.
Right.
And so, but that's really relieving. It's powerful. It's like, I don't feel like I have to nag.
Right.
I don't feel like I have to bottle because I know that there's a context in which I can share with my spouse about what's going on with our marriage. And that's, and I know it's on the calendar. I know I'll get a chance to do that.
Yeah. And just to add, this is also not a time for you to beat your spouse over the head with things that also, that it's just not a time for that. You could have a conversation.
Time,
Yes, it should be a building up time. Because I think some people hear that and they're like, oh, great, this is a time that I can totally just rattle off all the things that he or she is not doing. And and it just becomes
like
this
open season, on like, oh, cool, I got to tell them everything they're doing wrong.
Right.
They're not taking the garbage out, and you don't.
Right. It becomes ineffective, and then by the end of it, you feel very discouraged as a spouse.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't leave feeling discouraged. You should leave the conversation feeling encouraged. Like this is amazing. I feel so good. And we had a great conversation. And
and just to be clear, the context, so you bring up a really good point. The context isn't to air everything that drives you crazy about your spouse. Like he always forgets to take the garbage out. It's not really about that.
Yeah.
We're talking about inviting your spouse in to speak into character issues.
Yes.
Really, I think the best question you can ask your spouse at the beginning of these sessions is, babe, how can I serve you better, and how can I be a better husband?
Yes.
Babe, how can I serve you better, and how can I be a better wife? That's the invitation you're issuing when you start these, when you open the door up to these comms checks.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, okay, if you're not taking the garbage out, I don't know that qualifies. It's like, hey, babe, it's deeper level stuff. It's like, how are you leading me spiritually? How are you protecting our home? How are you providing for our home? How are you doing with the kids? How are you doing managing our finances?
Right.
Things that are like more important. So yes, you bring up a good point. It's not a nag session.
No, it's not.
It's how can I help you be a better spouse?
Right. And also just, and maybe you do talk about, because we all have blind spots. So, it could be like, hey, me asking you, hey, babe, do you see any blind spots that, maybe I'm not seeing that you could help me and point those out, because maybe I'm not seeing them. And there might be seasons of that. I mean, yes, we're all imperfect, but there might be times where it's like, hey, you know what? No, I don't see anything. Or there might be scenes where it's like, hey, actually, yeah, I've noticed that you're sliding on XYZ, and anyway, so I think that also could be very helpful. And you and I did that a lot, and we still do that, where it's like, hey, babe, do you see, are there any blind spots that,
and by God's grace, admittedly, as you do this more and more and more, if your spouse is like wants to enact change, they want to honor their spouse, and they want to listen and learn, well, guess what? The list gets shorter and shorter. Yeah. Like if you're really working things out, my wife tells me 5 times that she feels like I'm coming home and being too harsh on the kids. It's like, if I keep not doing that, well, I'm not listening. Yeah. But if you're listening and and you're making change, guess what? These meetings just get easier and easier, and the list gets shorter and shorter. Yeah. And honestly, for you and I, I mean, really as time went on, it was more like a fun compliment session. I remember specifically multiple times just being like, I got to be honest, babe, I don't have anything. You're killing it. And that's a fun meeting, right? That's just like, wow. I mean, that's awesome. And I mean, that's genuine. We both had that. Yes. Just like times where it's like, man, babe, I'm just loving my life. Yeah. Because you already did this for 2 years. Yes. You've been working things out, and you know what things to work on, and you know what's bugging your spouse, and you know how you're failing as a husband or a wife. And as you're working on them, these connection points, these comms checks, they just become less and less intense. Yeah.
And I mean, just to add to that, then if that is the case, and that is this, where it's like it just becomes like lifting and building your spouse up, then also you guys get to praise God together for the work that he has done in your life, in your marriage, but also individually. And you get to sometimes, well, I shouldn't say sometimes, we did it a ton and we still do it, but those conversations, yes, you check in and all the things, but sometimes like we were just like, let's recount how good the Lord has been. And let's give thanks.
Into a moment of thankfulness and worship. And
and I think sometimes from that, we would just then like, oh man, remember this or remember that. And it's just always good to remember what the Lord has done, what he is doing and what he will do in your marriage. And so it just allowed time for us to give thanks to the Lord for all that he had done. And it had just been pursuing us, and it had just been in the middle of all the chaos early on in our marriage. And so, we could obviously go on and on and on, but I think everybody's getting the point here that it's
marriage comms checks.
Yes.
Communicate.
It's so important.
Yeah. Be willing to share.
If there is one piece of advice that we give all the time to couples is, how is your communication with your spouse? Yeah. And usually it's like, oh, well, not really that great. Well, you're like, okay, well, that's probably why they don't feel loved or they just don't feel heard. It's like, go try that, and then let's come back and have a conversation and see what happens. A well-oiled
ship with a crew on it. How well is that ship going to run if nobody's talking about this needs to be done? Totally. Listening to directives and orders and moving in unity as a team. Well, it takes communication.
Communication mitigates chaos.
Yes. Communication mitigates chaos. Yes. So we got checking in with your spouse about their biological child.
Yep.
We got marriage check-in.
Yes.
The other two are family check-ins and then one-on-ones with the kids. And we can probably kind of blur these a little bit. And we can these are they're not super hard to. They're
pretty straightforward.
Intuitive, pretty straightforward. So, we always like to do family level check-ins where the kids for a while really enjoyed like getting to, circling up at night.
Yeah.
And just talking for a little bit.
Yeah.
How are things going? What are you struggling with? And we would couple it with prayer.
Yes.
Right? Like we'd pray together. And so, if you want to know what is on your child's heart, ask them what they want prayer for. And that's a powerful way of getting the child to, talk about what's important in their life and what they're feeling. And so circling up the family over the dinner table, after dinner, before bed, praying like this. This is one of these life exercises that sounds like, well, duh. But again, people don't communicate. They don't circle up and talk. Dad's out the door at 6 a.m. The kids are out the door at 7:30 for school. Everybody flies back in. They're doing homework till 8. Dad's tired. He's watching Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
Dinner gets served. Everybody gets tired and goes to bed.
Well,
I mean, that is a routine ad nauseum for most families. And then in 2 years goes by and you're like, I don't know. We never talk.
Yeah. Or just to add to that, the only time people are talking is when things are good. They're on this high of like, oh, everything's good. And everybody, and then it just fades off. And then you wonder why there's just chaos in the home and there's no order. And then you're like, well, because you stopped. Just because things are going good doesn't mean you stop. You keep going.
Right.
And so that's something that that we've seen a lot. Yeah. One of the other things I was going to add is, the one-on-one check-ins with your kid. Wait, did we get there yet? No. Is that
No, that's next.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
we can move to that.
No, well, I guess I was just going to add that when we would circle up as a family, we liked to circle up when we would get our kids. So that same night that we got them from their other parent, it was our week or on week. We liked to circle up as a family right away. And the kids knew it was just something that was learned. It was something that we just hardly ever missed, that we were like, hey, we're going to have dinner together and then we're going to circle up and we're just going to hang out as a family.
Yeah.
And we would pray. Sometimes after dinner, it might have been like a movie, depending on what day it was, or,
do something just fun. We would go down to Sonic and get ice cream, or whatever.
Totally.
Like spend time together and inadvertently, or not inadvertently, of course, what's the natural byproduct of that is you're going to talk.
Yes.
And then if you have intentionality behind that moment, the kids just think you're asking random questions.
Right.
The parents are investigating.
Yeah.
In a good way.
And
how did it go last week? What did you guys do?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, we would just check in with each one of them.
Yeah.
And hey, how was your week? And sometimes it was low. And so it gave the opportunity for us and have insight on how we can specifically be praying for our kids when they're not in our home.
Yeah.
And so be listening and be mindful and watchful, because you will, like you said, you will get to know their heart and even some of the things that they struggle with.
Yep.
Obviously, being a blended family, there's a lot of hardship, and their other side, it may be very unstable, and that is the case a lot of times.
Yeah.
And so it may be a struggle to be away from your home. And so it just gave the opportunity for us to check in with our kids. And so anyway, I think that was just one of the biggest ways, I think, for us to.
Yeah. Well, and then so right on the heels of that, the one-on-one check-ins, then you can that flows right into one-on-one check-ins.
Yeah.
Just take what you just said about being on the other week. Maybe it's not a healthy environment.
Yeah.
A lot of times it isn't. A lot of times when your kids aren't with you, where they're with the other parent, unfortunately, a lot of times for a lot of people, that environment is not the best environment. It can be toxic and be unhealthy, or you just don't even, or maybe it's just they don't share your values,
right.
and yet you've tried to create consistency in your home. They go away, they come back, and the kids a lot of times they just feel different. They've each week they sort of go away and they just pick up some of that stuff that might come back with them if the other home isn't controlled or healthy.
Right.
And so going right into those one-on-ones and just being like, and again, sometimes the kids, it's not that they have to know, like, oh, we're going to have a one-on-one with Johnny. And he's like, what's going on? I'm being interrogated.
Yes.
But you just happen to go get ice cream with one of them and talk. Give them this individualized attention. Give them both parents' ear. Ask them how it's going. How'd soccer practice go last week, bud? And like, just get them talking and reconnect with them. And when we get into the parenting section, we're going to talk about relationship and how critical relationship is with your kids. And keeping that. This is one of those mechanisms that keeps you in close relationship with your kids, because it just says so much when you just like, hey, bud, let's go to the park together, and go kick a ball together. So one-on-one time with kids, you have to have that.
You do.
You can't just connect as a family.
Right.
I mean, family's great, but there's things that are going to get shared one-on-one with your child that they're not going to share in front of their siblings.
For sure.
And so you need to carve out time alone with them.
Yeah. And, and it doesn't need to be like, like you said, this like announce like, hey, and they feel interrogated. Sometimes when you and I, well, not you and I, we would go for a walk as a family. That was another thing that we did. We always, after dinner, we'd go for a walk around the block. But then one of the kids would come up to you or me, and you'd have those one-on-ones right there naturally happening. It doesn't need to be this appointed time. Have it be natural.
Right. Oh,
and
totally.
So, which I think the kids are intuitive to that too. They're like, oh, nobody's by mom or dad. I'm gonna race up there and have a conversation or whatever. So that was something that
and embrace that when it happens. Like, have eyes for it. Like, put your stupid cell phone away.
Yes.
And you and your wife can talk later that night or whatever. Like if the kids want that time, like, just stop and give them that time. Give them your ear. Engage. Ask good questions. Check in one-on-one with each kid. You will discover incredible things about your children and incredible things about where they're at and what they're happy about and what they're maybe not happy about. And so those are powerful moments that every blended family needs to capitalize on to be successful.
Yeah.